Welcome to Conversations of Hope, a podcast that shines light into the darkness of childhood sexual abuse. I am your host, Faith Ingram of Speaking Truth in Love Ministries.
And I am Michelle Viscuse from Journey Pink. We are both survivors of childhood sexual abuse, and we're sharing our healing journey to raise awareness and provide hope and support to other survivors.
We know what it's like to feel all alone with our secrets, but we also know what it's like to find freedom. We are breaking the silence that allows sexual abuse to thrive and using our voices to empower and encourage those who have experienced abuse.
Our goal is to create a safe space for survivors to find hope and healing in community. Thank you for joining us.
Today, we're going to talk about the importance of safety when you share your story and how do you build up a support group of people that love you and are concerned about your safety. And in talking about this, I'm reminded of the story of David when King Saul tried to kill him twice and he fled. And he shared with Jonathan that King Saul was trying to kill him and that it wasn't safe for him to stay in the king's palace. And at first, Jonathan didn't believe him, but he went back and tested the king, and then he realized that David's life was truly in danger. And he said to David, "You need to go far away." So he realized the importance of keeping David safe. And then David, as you keep reading on in his story, he provides for his family safety. He sends them to a far off country, and he gets a band of mighty men around him to help protect him and to help fight in his battles that he would have in trying to flee and stay safe from King Saul, who was pursuing him. A lot of times it is not safe for us to have an ongoing relationship with our abuser or our offender. And sometimes people may try to tell you that you need to reestablish a relationship with somebody who is not healthy, who is not safe. So today we're going to talk about finding that safe place, finding that safe community. Michelle, what are your thoughts on this?
Whew, that was a lot. um, well, I was thinking, as you said that, like how a lot of things, all of that happened with me where I found my safe group. It didn't happen overnight. Like I said, it started with one or two people. Then my counselor got added. Then I was in group counseling and I got to know about 3 other girls from that group. And little by little, I started sharing my story with people that God would just put me in front of. And if I felt led to say something about it, I would. I didn't go into a lot of detail. I would just say, hey, this is what I've been going through, and this is why things have been hard for me lately. And I would just share it. But as these things started happening, I noticed that I could not return a text. I could not answer the phone. I tried to avoid contact as much as possible. And that was hard for people to understand because at the time I wasn't saying why I needed space. But I could not balance pretending like everything was fine with, whoa, I'm really struggling over here. And my life this is hard. And so I started to back away. And eventually, when I was strong enough to confront my abuser, I went no contact. And I know that that's hard for people to understand or hear sometimes, but the reality is there's so much power, manipulation, and brainwashing that has taken place. I have to step away to heal. I had to get away from that. It would be the same as someone being part of like a cult or something, and then all of a sudden telling them, well, you can still go visit on the weekends. No, you can't, because you've had to separate yourself from that toxicity. It's toxic. It's harmful. It's not good for you. And so I know you said a lot more than that, but that's just kind of what stood out to me in the beginning, is that yes, it's really, really hard, but necessary to somehow pull away from that culture, to pull away from the people who enable that culture, pull away from the people who are not safe, who are not supportive. And as you do that, finding people that are supportive, that are safe, that are not toxic. They want the best for you. They don't want to put tape over your mouth. They don't want to silence you. They want to sit with you. And I think when you can see it for what it is, when you think about it that way, you're certainly going to heal better if you're out of that toxic environment, if you're out of that culture.
Right.
And it's hard. I did it little by little. At first, it was not returning a call, or maybe not returning a text, and not showing up at an event. And at that point, I hadn't even said anything. I haven't even said why. No one knew why. I just knew that if I went, I was going to really, really struggle.
Right.
And so,
Right. And I think I found that once I told my story, that I had to distance myself, because I was actually, for much of my adult life, I was living a lie. Even though I knew that I had been abused as a child, I wasn't being abused now, and I wasn't in that relationship of abuse victim, but it appeared like everything was normal in my relationship with my abuser. And once I started telling my story, then it wasn't a normal relationship. I couldn't have a normal relationship with a man that had sexually abused me for 10 years of my life, and then it be like normal, like it never ever happened, because I didn't want people to know that there was something weird. And then it made me sick to be around him. It was just nauseating to be in the same room with him or in the same building with him. So, yes, it makes it necessary for you not to go to family events that he's there, or not to invite them to your house anymore, not to go to their house anymore. I still had contact with my mom. I would meet her and do things with her, but even that was strained after I started healing and growing in my relationship with God, and the whole healing process. It did impact so many of relationships. And people looked at that, and they would say, well, you're not being loving or forgiving because you can't have that relationship with your offender. And it doesn't really mean that you're loving or unforgiving. It means that you are setting boundaries to keep your emotional well-being intact, to keep yourself healthy, and to do what you need to do for your healing, and to keep your children safe. It's that manipulation that makes you question, okay, maybe I'm not quite remembering things right. And it doesn't mean that I haven't forgiven my dad because I didn't have a relationship with him during the last several years. It just means that I set boundaries for myself because I'm putting me first and my safety. Not that I believed he would attack me again, but because I needed that space.
people who have experienced trauma particularly people who have been through what we've been through. Years later, it doesn't matter. You're in the same room with them. There's that uneasiness that comes over you. There's that, sick feeling in your stomach that comes over you. Again, the body remembers what the brain chooses to forget. The body does not forget. And so I would be very anxious. You have to be on all the time to act like everything's fine. You have to be hypervigilant. Even if nothing is going to happen, you might be a little bit afraid that it will. And so you have to, be hypervigilant. And so all of these stress hormones are surging through your body at the mere mention of their name or at the mere looking at a photo. Do you really think it's going to be good, wise, and healthy to be constantly in the presence? No, it's hard. And I don't know how to fix that. I mean, that's just, I like you. One of the first comments that I got from a relative was to DM me on Facebook and say, doesn't the Bible say forgive? That was the question. It wasn't, I'm sorry that happened to you. It wasn't, is there anything I can do for you? It wasn't, how are you? It was, doesn't the Bible say forgive? That's the first question.
Right.
And if you think about that, because of course, when I read that, I was like, oh my goodness, she's right. And this is in the very beginning of me speaking out. Yes, the Bible says forgive. That is what the Bible says. But they are using that as a way to say, let's just put a little bow around this and act like it never happened and forgive each other and shake hands and give each other a hug. And let's continue as normal. Let's just go with status quo and do what we've always done. Right. Something bad happens, you forgive it. It's going to happen again. You're going to forgive it. It's going to happen to the next one. You're going to forgive it. And thankfully, my counselor said early on to me, because I knew, I went in one of those early sessions and said, and I've been thinking about it, and I'm sure that God loves him just like he loves me, and he wants me to forgive. So I am ready to do that. And she was like, we're not going to go there right now. We'll get there. We're not going to go there right now. Right. Because if we do that, then we are missing the opportunity to heal. We are missing the opportunity to take care. You are putting a Band-Aid on a gaping wound that's filled with infection. And it's not going to work. Do you need to forgive? Yes. Will you forgive? Yes. But do you also need to grieve what you've lost? Yes. Do you need to recognize what it did to you? How it could have been different? Why it didn't have to be that way? And then I think the biggest thing for me is making sure it's going to be different for future generations. I cannot change anything that's happened to me. I wish I could. I cannot. But I can spend the rest of my life hoping and helping to make sure it doesn't happen to others as best I can, or to help them, find any freedom, any healing, because I know how hard it is to find it.
And David, I think he showed that he did forgive and love Saul when he had two opportunities that he could have taken Saul's life when Saul was pursuing him, once in the cave and once when they were camped outside. And he revealed to Saul that he could have killed him, and Saul tried to convince him that he had changed and that it was safe for him to come back to the palace. And David didn't. He knew, even though he didn't kill Saul, he knew that Saul was not safe, and it was never safe for him to reestablish that relationship with Saul because he was dangerous. And it doesn't mean that I didn't love my dad, but he was not a safe person for me to be around. He was not safe for my children to be around. He was still manipulative. He was still controlling. And I think it's important that when you set boundaries, that other people don't look at that as being unforgiving as much as it's a way to protect yourself, to set boundaries. And I think in the place of that, you don't become bitter. I didn't spew awful words and names. I didn't call my dad names. I didn't talk about him to everybody I saw. But instead, you establish new relationships, healthy relationships with people that you know that you can trust, that you've proven that you can trust them. And I know it's hard when your trust has been broken at a very young age to find people that you can trust, because it's so hard to open up to
Right.
people because we have these big walls built up, and you don't want to establish new relationships easily. You want to make sure that the people that you are bringing into your circle are safe people who are concerned with your safety and with your well-being, and they aren't there to judge you and tell you what you need to do. So often the response from when a person shares that they've been abused, the response is DARVO, which is deny. People, especially in your family circle, they're going to deny that this abuse happened within your family. And the offender is going to deny, most usually the offender will deny it. And then they deny, and then
Is it accused?
yes, they
Well-
accuse, you're making up stories, you're unforgiving, you're unloving. They accuse, and then they reverse the victim and the offender. So then the victim becomes the offender because the victim is telling the family secrets, or the victim is telling something. They're accusing somebody that everybody loves and trusts, and he's so charming. They're accusing him. So they are becoming the offender. They're the ones that's making the waves. They're the ones that are creating all of the issues. And the offender then becomes the victim because he's being attacked by
Mhm.
his victim. And it's not that he's being attacked, the truth is being told, and they don't want that to come out. And so often that's how the church responds, just like you said, you need to be loving. Don't we need to be forgiving? Doesn't God say to forgive? And that's true. But see, what they're saying is they're making you out to be the sinful one in this
Right.
situation. You're unloving. You're unforgiving. You just want to tell family secrets. And those people that tell you that and try to make you believe the lies that you finally told yourself aren't true, they're trying to give you back into those lies. You're the unloving one. There's something that you did that caused this. So we have to really rethink who are our safe people and who can we go to. And I think we need to pray that God would bring safe people into our lives, especially when we've shut ourselves off. We need to know that God does have people there that are concerned with our well-being.
Right. And if you have no concept of what safe people look like I had no concept because it was not safe. And so safe people are not toxic. They appreciate boundaries and they encourage boundaries. They're not gonna get upset because you're putting up boundaries. Safe people are confidential. They're not gonna gossip about your secrets or tell others about your secrets. And safe people are there for you. They hold space. They can't change anything that's happened to you. They're not the miracle worker. God is. They really are not the miracle worker. God is the miracle worker. But they hold space with you in your sadness, in your pain, in your remembering, and in your healing. You have someone that's with you. And that's why I think it's important. We talked about a circle of support or a group of support, because that's a lot for one person to do. It starts out usually with one person. You share it with one person. But that one person is human and they will not always be available. They will not always be, at the top of their game. So they may not return a text in time or, respond quickly. And that's why having several people that you can reach out to when you're hurting or when you need to share something, it's really important that you have a circle of people that are safe, that are not toxic, that love you, that believe you, that see you, that hold space for you, and they appreciate your boundaries and they appreciate the journey that you're on. They know that it's a lot of times I feel like it's people that have been through similar circumstances that can truly appreciate your journey and that can truly appreciate this is hard for you now, but it's going to get better. And they can encourage you to keep going, to keep taking the next step. You're not alone.
Yeah. So in closing, we just want to remind you that it is important to find your safe circle of friends or support group. And it may start out with one or two people, but just ask God to help you to know who your safe people are and help bring them into your life so that you can know who to trust. And sometimes there are resources online if you don't know anybody. Today's world, there are coaches, there are online coaches, there are people that you can reach out to that will walk you through finding your support group. We hope this podcast is a source of comfort and inspiration for those who are struggling with the aftermath of childhood sexual abuse. Thank you for joining us on this journey of hope and healing.
Please be sure to subscribe and check out our show notes for more information. See you next time on Conversations of Hope with Faith and Michelle.